Today we're watching this remodel of a loft apartment in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm going to tell you what I like and what I don't like about it. So if you ever decide to buy or remodel a loft like this, you'll know exactly how to think about it. Let's do this.
I think my best advice to someone designing their own space is think about how you want to live your life. What kind of kitchen do you want to have? Where do you want to drink coffee? Do you want to have 6 people for dinner? Do you want to have 16 people for dinner? How do you want to have drinks with your friends? Ask yourself all these questions that we ask our clients. I'm doing for myself exactly what I try to do for my clients. Give myself a home that's right for me, just like I'm trying to help my clients create a home that's right for them.
I think this is so important, right? It sounds so obvious, but so few people actually do this and ask themselves the question, like, what do I actually want from my home? What ends up happening is a lot of people actually design a home that's not really right for them. They design it because it fits into a particular mold of, 2 bedrooms, one living room, whatever, because that's what they've been conditioned to believe they actually need. When you have a space, when you're starting from scratch, as he did here, and we'll see this a little later in the video, the world is your oyster, right? And you want to capitalize on that. So just think about that as you're designing or even just remodeling your space. What do you specifically want from it? Ask yourself some of these questions. Who do you want to spend time with in that space? How do you want to spend your time? How do you want to feel when you're at home? They want to entertain other people. They want a bit of a social atmosphere. For other people, they want something more quiet, more subdued that allows them to relax. Neither of those is the correct way. It just comes down to what you actually want, because when you're designing your space, that's really what it's all about. What do you want?
I'm Robert Stilin. I'm an AD 100 designer based in New York, and I'm going to take you behind the design of my new loft in Red Hook, Brooklyn. I found out about this loft in this building about 8 years ago. I had a close friend of mine who was living in Red Hook, and he and a bunch of his friends were talking about this amazing new industrial loft building on the waterfront, and it was exciting, and I was intrigued.
If you're the kind of person who loves industrial design, just think about how incredibly special it would be to live in a place like this, right? All the shipping containers, like all this activity, it's super raw, and for me, I would really love to live in a place like this.
I had been living at that point in Soho for over 10 or 12 years in the same apartment, which was beautiful, but I was looking for a bigger space and I wanted to live more graciously.
This is something that's so common for people who live in New York. The apartments can be really small, not Asia style small where we're talking like, 20, 30 square meters or 200, 300 square feet, but for American cities, very tight. Maybe 400, 500 square feet. After a while, once you kind of soak up the city and you get a little bit saturated of what the downtown core of New York has to offer, then they move out. This is so common, and obviously he wanted more space. He got a lot more space.
I wanted to have light. I wanted to have space. The minute I came to this building, I was like, I think I'm gonna live here.
Okay, so he says something important here, which is the minute he came to this building, he felt like he wanted to live here. You need to lean into those instincts. If you get that feeling when you walk into a place because you see a piece of art on the wall and you say, yeah, I want to live in this place, that's probably the wrong idea, right? That's an instinct you don't want to trust. But if you feel it because of the bones of the place, here he's talking about he wanted light, he wanted more space, right? He clearly loves this industrial style of building, then that's the kind of instinct that you want to lean into. Don't be afraid to listen to your gut when you get that feeling. It shouldn't be every day, right? But if you get it occasionally and strongly, especially when it comes to a home, don't be afraid to listen to that.
This is the space, more or less the way that I bought it. It was completely raw industrial space, which was great for me because I wanted it to be as authentically a loft as I possibly could do.
If you're looking for a loft, this is a loft, right? New York City is one of those places where you can actually get buildings like this. A lot of cities just simply don't have this style of architecture from their past. Where do these lofts come from? It's generally old warehouses or, very industrial buildings that have gone derelict or been abandoned for whatever reason, and now they're getting revived. So depending on where you live, there may just not be any buildings like this in your city. If you are looking for this style, then a place like New York, Brooklyn, these are incredible places to live to get this style of architecture.
I was much happier to expose all the heating and air conditioning than build a soffit out of drywall to hide it. I kept all the columns, we didn't touch them. If they had graffiti on it, we left them. If they had paint marks on it, we left it.
I think what he said here is really important because a lot of people think they want a loft space, but they actually want more of a fake loft space, right? Even if they get a place, you know, a building like his, the moment they move in there, they cover everything with drywall, right? They drywall the ceilings to eliminate the exposed heating and air conditioning and, you know, all the, you know, the piping, the bones of the building. They drywall all the walls, covering up all the cement, the pillars that have all the graffiti on it, all of that. And what they end up with is just a large white box. And there's a big difference between a large white box and an actual loft space. A large white box you can get in just about any city, right? As long as the ceilings are high enough and the walls aren't too narrow, then congrats, you got yourself a large white box. But if you want a true loft, then you really have to seek out a building like this and do the kinds of things that he's talking about, right? Leave the graffiti on the walls. Leave the floors as they are. Of course, you can, you know, if they're concrete, you can polish the concrete or something like that, but the more you do after the fact, the less of a true loft it becomes.
There's all this history here. And I think that that's important in design, and the history and the age and patina of things. You're sitting in a chair that's 60 years old. And you're sitting on a rug that's 90 years old. It's not perfect. It has age in it. It has the history of other people who lived on it. And all these things do, and that makes a difference. It's soulful.
Okay, something important here. A lot of lofts end up feeling really cold because you've got concrete walls, often a concrete ceiling, and concrete floors. And so it's not exactly the kind of place you would want to live. But what he's done here is he's added in so many textures and so much furniture that has its own texture. You know, nothing about this space feels cold at all. In fact, it feels incredibly warm. You've got rugs under your feet, all this furniture and artwork on the walls, and such nice lighting that just warms up the space and makes it the kind of space where you can feel cozy and at home.
This place is kind of new in the sense that it's all renovated, but all the things and the layers make you feel comfortable.
I love the way that he approaches design, right? So many people believe that in order to have a beautiful, comfortable space, you need brand new stuff, a brand new couch, brand new rug, brand new everything. But what he's explicitly saying is that patina matters. Having things that have lived a life of their own matters. If you want that super sterile minimalist look, then fine. Maybe you want to buy everything off the shelf. That's okay. But if you want something that's more cozy, that has warmth and texture to it, then you need to look for items that have a bit of a life of their own. So don't make the mistake of confusing old with dirty, right? Just because a chair is 50 years old doesn't mean that it's dirty or unusable. In many cases, it means that it's well built because it's withstood the test of time.
So this is the layout of this apartment. Over here is New York Harbor. On this side is all of Brooklyn. You get sunrises. On the bedroom side, you get sunsets on the loft side. And
okay, so what an incredible layout for this apartment, right? You've got the bedroom side, which is facing southeast, and the loft side facing the water, which is facing northwest. And so as he said, in the bedroom, you get incredible sunrises, which for me is exactly what I like. I like having the sunrise over my bedroom side so that it wakes me up slowly. And then on the other side, on the loft side, you get these sunsets, and you can just see the entire city kind of slowing down and entering that state of rest for the evening.
On the water side, you have these expansive 180-degree views. You're overlooking the entire New York Harbor. We have the ship.
First, this seems like a really small desk here compared to all the other furniture, so I can't imagine that this desk really ever gets used, because do you want to use a desk that's this big or one that is, 12 feet long? Anyone's going to choose the one that's 12 feet long, so I don't think this space is really going to get used at all. I would probably just remove it. But the second thing is that I don't think there's any curtains or blinds on these windows at all. The windows that are facing the harbor. Privacy is not an issue here because, as far as I can tell, there's no one who would be able to see into this unit because it's just facing the water and some industrial buildings that are much lower down. But when there's light streaming into this place in the afternoon, you may want some sheer curtains that are going to soften that light and give the space a nice glow, as opposed to having a harsh afternoon light that, is going to make people squint and things when they're sitting down low.
This is the primary suite here. So it has a very, very, very large, gracious bedroom area that has like a whole seating area in it. Very large primary closet.
Okay, we'll talk about the bedroom in a minute because he's going to show it in a bit more depth. But look at this walk-in closet, right? A couple things to note. First of all, the lighting under each shelf. That just makes the space so much more usable and accessible because you can actually see what's in those lower shelves, right? Especially in this area where it doesn't look like it gets a lot of natural light, at least at this time of day. Having this kind of under shelf lighting is essential. Also, there's a ton of space in here. As far as I know, he lives here alone, but as you can see, there's at least a few hundred pieces of clothing in here, laid out with a good amount of room to spare. and at least a dozen or a couple dozen pairs of shoes down here at the bottom. And so for an apartment this size, you definitely want to have a walk-in closet like this, and I think this one's been executed beautifully.
With a steam shower and a tub, and it has furniture in it. The connection between the west side and the east side doesn't have any natural daylight, so I really wanted.
Okay, here's one of the hallways in this apartment. And for me, this feels really tight. There are some architects, Frank Lloyd Wright used to do this a lot, this notion of compression, they call it, which is basically when you enter a space, you get compressed, right? They kind of close the space in on you so that when you exit this corridor, as you can see at the end here, you expand into a really large space. I don't know if that's the intention here, but this is something that architects tend to do. But the other thing about this corridor that makes it even smaller is all these frames on the wall. Personally, I'm not sure if I would go with this. It does feel a little claustrophobic to me. You certainly can't have two people side by side here. So if you and someone else wants to walk down the hall at the same time, you gotta kind of have to, shimmy around each other and try not to knock something off the wall. So I don't know if I would have went with this, but it seems to work for him. So more power to him.
And I really wanted to live in a loft. So I decided to keep the western exposure, which overlooks all of New York Harbor, as my living space in one gigantic loft space that's sort of kitchen, dining, and living. So this is the loft area of my apartment. This space is like 1,800 square feet.
Okay, first of all, 1,800 square feet in this loft space is enormous, right? That's bigger than most people's entire apartments, and this is just the one loft space. He still has the bedroom, he's got the bathroom, a handful of other rooms in here. So this place is big.
Big volume. And I know probably to a lot of people, that's like a daunting idea. People are like, how did you do that? How did you make this feel so cozy and so comfortable and so natural? And one of the things is that you invisibly divide the space up into the spaces that you're going to have. And so there's the kitchen, there's the breakfast, loungy kind of area, there's the dining space and the living space, and you almost pretend like there are walls between it.
Huge insight here, okay? Did you catch what he said? When you have a big space like this, you need to invisibly divide it into different zones, okay? So not everything, this entire 1,800 square foot room, just because it's one room doesn't mean that it has to be used like one room. So he's got the dining area, the living area, right? The kitchen, the breakfast nook, all these zones with distinct functionality, and you put them next to each other in the same space to give you that sense of volume and grandeur. They can still be treated like different rooms. So I think this is something that a lot of people miss when they're working with a larger space. They think the entire space, just because there's a certain volume within four walls, you have to treat that volume as a single room or a single zone. You don't. And you can achieve these zones by using furniture, sometimes by using a slight elevation change. There's a handful of different ways to do it, but you do want to treat them like different zones so that you get a different feeling. And most importantly, so you have a reason to spend time in each of those zones. Otherwise, you're just going to gravitate to your favorite one and spend all your time there, and all the other space is wasted.
Everything is set up to be comfortable for one person to live here, but also it's flexible. If I have like one or two people over for lunch or coffee, I'll sit here. If I want to have like a drink with someone, I might sit here. It could be a one-on-one, or I could have like 10 or 15 people over there.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Each of these little zones has its own functionality for a different part of his life.
There isn't one chair or seating surface in this apartment that's not comfortable. I'm still a huge proponent of shopping and seeing things in person and trying them out. And I'm often baffled today when there's so much consumption online of like things for the home, and I don't know how people do it. Things are not always the way they look, and things are not always the size they said they were.
Couldn't agree more, right? If you're buying your furniture online, you're gonna have a lot of misses, right? Because something looks great, but you don't know how it feels. You don't know how it feels texturally. You don't know how it feels to sit on it or to lie on it, or use it in whatever way that you do. In my view, comfort is the new luxury.
Like, I can't say to a client they're comfortable unless I sat on them. And I don't want the responsibility of endorsing them if I didn't sit in them. Every single piece of furniture in there, I tried out.
Because when you buy furniture that both looks good, but is also extremely comfortable, what you're saying is, I understand the basics, the fundamentals of what good design is, but I understand them so well that I'm prioritizing comfort over them. So my space both looks good and feels amazing to be in.
The point in this business, and also because I was attracted to like antiques and vintage and all that, that like if you see something today and you really like it and it's unusual, you have to buy it. You're not going to find it in 6 months when you want it.
This is a huge mindset shift. Most people only buy something when they physically need it, right? A chair breaks, and so they buy a new chair. But a designer, a collector, will buy something when they see something interesting. They will collect it, they'll store it somewhere, and then they'll use it either today or in the future when they need it. But it's a big mindset shift because, so instead of just buying something out of necessity where you make lower quality decisions, you buy it when you find a good opportunity and then you make it work after that.
That creates this, need to have like a shop or a gallery and all.
Okay, I gotta be honest, I'm not sure about this table. This is quite a crazy piece, right? It seems to be made of maybe molded plastic with some metal pieces on there. It looks kind of cool in his space, but for me, I probably would have put something in here more like a dark wood coffee table, like something long and rectangular to match more or less the dimensions of the couch, something like that. He's obviously got some pretty unique eclectic tastes, which he's had a ton of success with, but at least for me, I probably would have went with something a little more traditional here.
Create an inventory for all these things so they're available.
So from this angle, I think you can get a pretty good idea of the scale of this room. The ceilings are 12, maybe even 15 feet high, which is incredibly high. And it's also kind of busy in here. We've got lots of different textures, a ton of art on the walls, and a ton of furniture. And he's doing something that a lot of homes can't pull off, which is having multiple seating areas next to each other. Now, like I said a minute ago, because he's divided the space into different zones, which are using different types of furniture, kind of different textures, a little bit of different colors, and just separating them into different moods, you can get away with this if you can do it effectively. But for most people, don't put multiple seating areas next to each other because you're just going to gravitate to whichever one you like more, and the other one will never get used.
So the kitchen is a totally functional kitchen. I wanted to have enough of a kitchen to sort of like have the things that I care about. Like I really do like a big island, and I like to be able to cook for my son and his wife. It's not so much about like I have to have a certain range. We use Wolf a lot. I have a big farmhouse sink from Waterworks. I also was lucky enough, because I do have this big gracious space, to have a scullery, butler's pantry sort of behind it that has everything that this kitchen doesn't have. I have an extra refrigerator, I have an ice maker, I have lots of extra storage. And I like to have things on site in terms of like the cooking things because it's just easy to get them.
Amazing kitchen here. And he's done something that a lot of people can't pull off very effectively, which is a dark toned kitchen, right? These dark cabinets, very dark countertop, and brass fixtures to just give it a little bit of shine. And he also has something that most people don't have, which is this additional scullery for doing probably more of the serious cooking, whereas this is more of a show kitchen where he can entertain his friends, make drinks, things like that. Now, for most of you watching, you're not going to have two kitchens, especially not right next to each other like this. So if you've got a loft space like this, you'll have to think about how can you fit everything that you want in your kitchen into a space of approximately this size. Of course, you can make the kitchen bigger if you have the space, but for most of us, we don't have a huge amount of space in order to expand our kitchen. So you got to get creative and think about what are the things that you actually want and need, and what are the things that you don't, so you can eliminate those to get the kitchen you want.
So this is my bedroom. I have Brooklyn in front of me. I feel engaged, but I also feel sort of Red Oak is super peaceful and quiet at the same time. And the sun comes up and there are these beautiful shadows on the wall, on top of the art.
Love the bedroom. One thing that he mentioned about the light spilling in, this is something that a lot of people overlook and don't think about when they're redesigning their bedroom or their entire home, which is how does the light hit your home? And if you've got light coming in your bedroom window, you want to know exactly where it's coming in so that you can think about where do you want to put the bed, right? Maybe the light's going to hit you right in the eyes in the morning. And so if you don't like that, then you want to move the bed somewhere else. If you do like that, because maybe you have some soft sheer curtains or something to soften the light and wake you up slowly, then that's totally fine. But just think about these things when you're designing your space so you know how you're actually going to exist in it. And if you're buying a new space, make sure you know as well exactly how the light comes in the windows at different times of day. So you can think about, okay, I want the bedroom here, or I need to move the bed here and it doesn't really work, so we're gonna have to do some renovations. This is the kind of thing you need to think about when you're buying or remodeling a space.
I really wanted to live in like a more gracious way. So I've had some parties here and like people love to come into this room and hang out.
All right, so his bedroom is kind of a bit of a public space as well. He's saying when he has people over, then they wander into the room. Fine, if that's cool for you, go for it. For me, I prefer to have my bedroom as more of a private space, but if this works for him, then that's great. So as you've already seen, this apartment is very busy, right? A lot of furniture, a lot of art all over the place, and that works for him. But for me, I probably would have gone with just a little bit less art on the walls to give the space a little bit more breathing room.
Like, people love to come into this room and hang out. And if I have 50 people over here for cocktails, people wind over into this room, and my bathroom is really quite large and has this furniture in it. It feels good to sort of like share.
Same thing in the bathroom here. First off, the tub looks kind of small, but maybe that's just because of the perspective of the video here. I can't really tell for sure. But I also probably would have got rid of this naked man photo or print on the wall and just kept this nice dark blue one. It seems to really set the tone for the space, and I think that would have been enough for me.
20, 30 years ago, some pieces that I just found in the past year or even a week or two ago. This chair, which is designed by the Campana brothers, who I've known for a long, long time. I really enjoy what they do. Their work has like a sense of humor, and it's functional, and it's beautiful, and it's unusual and unexpected. This chair came up for auction.
I'm glad he knows the brothers who made this chair, but for me, this is not going anywhere in my home. In some ways, it kind of looks, I don't know. It's just not coming into my space. I can guarantee you that.
And it sort of just, it worked out that I was able to get it, and I'm happy to have it here for those reasons, in addition to the fact that it is like an attention getter, and people, they're so curious about it, and it's actually super comfortable. And I'm a big believer in design is great, but if it doesn't function, if it doesn't work, it doesn't really make any sense to me.
Okay, I agree with him 100% here. We're just, having different opinions on the aesthetics of this chair, which is totally fine. But the fact that he chose it because he knows the guys, it's functional, right? It's super comfortable for him, then I think that's an amazing reason to get this chair. It's not the look for me, but if it works for him, then perfect.
I'm connected to everything that I have in this apartment. I think I have 300 or 400 works of art in this apartment.
300 or 400 pieces of art. That's wild, but it doesn't surprise me when you see the walls in this space, right? Looking at this corridor like we already did, there's at least, 40 or 50 pieces just in this corridor alone. Every piece of wall space is covered, so 300 or 400 kind of makes sense. But if you want to do something similar in your space, just think about the amount of time and effort you've got to put into curating those pieces. This is not something you just do casually, right? He's been doing this for years and years, but if it's for you, you might want to take a more minimal approach until you build up that muscle of being able to choose pieces that work well together and feel cohesive throughout your entire space.
In this apartment, I have personally purchased every single one of them. Every single one has a story behind it. There's a lot of relationships with artists, with dealers, auction houses, all the sort of different people that make up the art community and the design community are all woven into the history that is in all these pieces. And I've been doing this business for 30 years and top of my career and all that sort of stuff. But there's also all these other people, designers and dealers and gallerists and those people that they were starting out when I started out, and we were all like, we're nobody and trying to make our way in the world. And to have all that history and experience of all those people, and it's all tied to all these things. It's just super meaningful for me to live surrounded by all those things.
I love that. Clearly, the art in this space is meaningful to him. And that's one of the most important reasons why you should choose a piece of art. Of course, you want it to look good on your wall. You want it to be something that you can live with day to day. But also, you want to find pieces that actually have meaning to you, right? Something you picked up on a trip while you were abroad. Something that a friend made for you or gifted to you. Something that you found really unique at a small art market. Something like that actually brings some life and stories into your space. I think it's brilliant.
Like, I have no academic education in this business. I didn't go to design school, I didn't go to architecture school, I didn't go to landscape architecture school, I didn't go to construction school, I didn't go to any of it. So I think it's really important to trust your feelings and talk to people that you know in your life that you respect their opinion about that thing.
This is huge. This guy, who's an incredibly successful designer, didn't go to design school and didn't go to architecture school. He just learned it on the job, right? He learned by doing. And you can do the exact same thing. Design is not a function of academic training. It comes down to your intuition and to repetition. So feeling how you experience a space and replicating that in other spaces, right? Trying things, making changes, seeing how those changes make you feel, and learning on your own. Just like by watching these videos and any other videos, right? You don't need to have formal academic training in order to do this and in order to make your space beautiful. So that's the apartment. And overall, I think it's an incredibly beautiful space that holds a ton of lessons if you're buying, remodeling, or designing your own loft apartment. But if you want to see how these same principles apply in a much smaller space, then check out this video up here where I look at another apartment that I think you're also going to love. I'll see you there.